are you?
I'm fine, thank you, and thank you for inviting me to this conference.
And ma'am, how do you analyze the overall Indian education system?
The Indian education system at the moment is in a state of flux. If we look at the schools in the metros, in the big cities, a lot of reform, a lot of new things are being introduced. But if you look at the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, you look at the government schools, the same old traditional methods of imparting education are being carried on. The model, as I said, is the model of the industrial age, when you needed people for assembly line production. So as long as we have this production mentality with us, there will be no improvement in education. Today also, we are not educating children according to their capacities, according to their capabilities. We are batching them together as per their age groups.
Right.
As if the date of manufacture is the only important thing. And what is best before date? When we go to buy a commodity, that's what we look for. And this is what is being done in schools today. That the child has to be 3 years of age, has to be born between these two certain dates. Only then will the child get admission to a school or to a certain class. But I've seen children of the same age who are intellectually, emotionally very different from each other. Some children work well in a group. Some children work well in a big group. Others work well in a small group. There might be another child who works very well individually. So what is important is that we have to cater to the needs of the child, which we are unable to do. I think that's because of the overwhelming numbers that we have, that the teachers are unable to do it. They guide everybody with the same stick. It's the herd mentality, that everybody has to do the same thing. Everybody has to learn in the same way. But we all have our different styles. Just as no two human beings are the same, similarly our learning styles are also not the same. We are very different in that.
Ma'am, what are your views on right to education?
Right to education, I think, is basically it's a very good idea, especially in our country, which has such a large poor population, where parents are unable to afford education for their children, because education is something which is the only thing which matters in life. Nothing else matters. That is the only thing we can claim ownership on, is education.
Ma'am, some of the private institutes are having some kind of issues with
Yes, that's true, because education today is not a business. We have to remember that.
Right.
As per the law of our country, it's a not-for-profit activity. So schools are not making money. And if 25% of the seats go free, how do the schools meet their expenses? Because most of these schools that you're talking about are unaided schools. They don't get aid from anywhere. So their only source of revenue is the fee collection. And if 25%, if that fee collection, their revenue is going to be reduced by 25%, how are they going to meet the needs of the school? So that's a big challenge to them. Though the government says there is provision in the Act that the government will reimburse the schools, but that is more on paper than in reality. The schools are not really getting that, and they are spending much more on these children than they are receiving from the government.
Ma'am, according to you, what could be the solution to the lack of education problem prevailing in the rural masses, rural areas, basically, that children and the women are not, even they do not have the basic education?
The fundamental thing is that awareness has to be spread. People have to be made aware. The problem in our country is that every poor couple, every time a child is born, they don't take it as a mouth to feed, but as a source of income. Every child is considered a source of income, not a mouth to feed. And so these poor people, they think that it doesn't matter how many children we have, because they'll all go to work. They will not be sent to a school, but they'll all go to work. Though there is legislation in our country against child labor, but that is all being flouted, and therefore children are not going to school. So awareness is something that is very important. We have to spread awareness in our country.
And Indians have a very strong history of education from the time of Gupta dynasty, when they were gurukuls. There were universities, big universities like Prayag University, like Nalanda Vishwavidyalaya, and other eminent universities which were termed as the Cambridge and Oxford of Asia. So now, how do you see the education has changed, and the standard has lowered down or it has improved?
Forgive me for saying so, but have we ever analyzed that the great universities we had, there's no doubt about. Who are the people who went to these universities? Just the top classes. The lower classes were not allowed education. That is a major step forward today, that every child in our country has the right to education. The government has given the right to education to every child, irrespective of caste, creed, or any kind of affiliation. Every child. That was not so in those days. Those were great universities, no doubt. Great centers of learning. People came from overseas to attend these universities. But who are the Indians going to these universities? The creme de la creme only. But when we look at it today, I think we have come a long way. Howsoever low our standards might be, but the fact is that we give every child in our country the right to education, which I think is a major step forward. Yes, there are hiccups in everything. Any step forward that we take, there are always challenges, but we have to overcome the challenges. Life is a challenge, and we always overcome those challenges. So I'm sure our country will overcome this challenge also.
India is such a diverse country with so many different languages. And do you think that the localization of education is necessary?
It's very necessary, I feel, because the child learns best in the mother tongue.
But then localization won't serve the purpose, because English is the language which will fetch them good jobs.
Yes, English is the lingua franca, no doubt about it. But to begin with, the child has to be taught in the mother tongue. Otherwise, no learning takes place. If we impose a foreign language on a child and there is no family background of the knowledge of that language, the child is unable to learn and the child becomes a misfit in the school. So the first step is that the child should be able to learn, and it's only then that English should be introduced. Such experiments have taken place in many places all over the country, and what I found is that highly successful individuals have graduated from such schools who were to begin with educated in their mother tongue, and such people have found places in IITs and IIMs, and many of them are holding great positions even overseas today.
Ma'am, how was your overall WES experience?
I think it was a great experience. I've enjoyed being here. I've enjoyed speaking here yesterday. The entire session in which I spoke was a very stimulating session, and the sessions I attended earlier were very stimulating sessions, and a number of people I've met, it has been great really. So overall, I would rate it as a great experience.
And do you find any areas of improvement?
Not that I can think of, but yes, if I think of something, I'll definitely get back to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's a
Thank
pleasure
you.
having you here.
Thank you very much.